The Muslim scientists used paper 200 years before Europe. They had paper mills, banks, and police stations, and invented spherical trigonometry, which is indispensable for space travel. So they also solved equations of the third and fourth degree. They also solved the binomial equation to the nth degree and developed differential and integral equations and mathematics. They discovered the force of gravitation, blood circulation, laws of motion, and even developed the theory of evolution and taught the theory of evolution in Spain in their universities. They also measured the circumference of the Earth and values of specific gravities correct to 3 decimal places almost 1,000 years ago. So there is hardly any field of knowledge where Muslims did not research, think, or investigate and explore or invent something exemplary. So we have a great encyclopedia scientists such as Abu Rayhan al-Biruni, Ibn Sina, Umar al-Khayyam, Ibn al-Haytham, al-Razi, many scientists and physicians who excelled and who contributed to the advancement of human knowledge in science, technology, and medicine.
What are the causes of the decline of Muslims in science, especially in these last few centuries?
There are several reasons, both external and internal. The external reason is the Crusades. So when the Crusaders came, they had no respect for learning and no respect for science, technology, medicine. So what they did, they not only destroyed, they killed many Muslims, and that was a setback for the Muslims in their advancement. The second, rise of Genghis Khan, who came and destroyed many Muslim cities. He killed everybody, both men and women and children. And then that was continued by his grandson, Hulagu Khan, who came to Baghdad in 1258 AD in February, and he killed almost 1 million people. And then he destroyed the library, he destroyed the architecture, the buildings. He also killed many scholars. So this was very devastating because many Muslims from what is now Uzbekistan and all these Central Soviet Union republics, they were all destroyed. So he killed many women, children, scholars. He threw the books in the Tigris River near Baghdad. The color of the water was black for many days, maybe like 8 days. And the books were so many, it became like a bridge to cross over. So he had, these people were so backward or primitive, had no respect for knowledge, scholars, books, and even architecture. They destroyed the masajid. So this was a really great blow for the Muslims, and then the Muslims lost their enthusiasm, their drive for learning, and they turned towards Sufism, inward. They turned inward. So instead of achieving the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, they became very passive and turned inwardly, seeking meditation, and so they left the world, in other words. The third reason is what is called obscurantism. The Muslim rulers themselves were discouraging the Muslims to pursue the scientific field, the medical field. They even destroyed their own observatories in Turkey, for example, and they never allowed the printing press to be used to print books. So there was a delay of probably 200, 300 years since the invention of the printing press by the Gutenberg. And there are so many obscurantism, we call this as obscurantism. There's the prevention of free thought, expression of ideas, and they just told the Muslims to just say their salah, fast during Ramadan and go to Hajj. So these are the 5 pillars of Islam they wanted to follow. And therefore, we are, now this is the backlash. Now we have completely left the mainstream of science and technology medicine. So these are the few causes for our decline.
Dr. Syed, could you please elucidate for us the present status of the Muslim Ummah the world over?
The Muslim Ummah is in a really bad shape now because, first of all, if you take the literacy rate is probably 35 to 38% all over Muslim Ummah. And there are a few countries which have very good high percentage of literacy rate, and there are a few Muslim countries like Somalia and Afghanistan where the literacy rate is very, very low, like maybe like 10%. And it is very tragic that in Afghanistan with the Taliban and the infighting and civil war, probably the literacy rate is approaching zero. They have banned the girls from going to school. So this is in certain countries. But on the whole, even our sisters, the literacy rate is very low, maybe 2 to 3%, and the illiteracy is very high. This is really contradicting the Quranic commands to read. So we left the Quran and we fell down from the position, very high position, to the very low position. So if you look at the Nobel Prizes, more than 500 Nobel Prizes have been awarded. So we are, alhamdulillah, 1.4 billion people in the world out of 6 billion. So we constitute 20% or 25% of the population of the world. So we should have gotten 20 to 25% Nobel Prizes. But we got only 5 of more than 500. And look at the Olympic Games, how many medals we win. Probably 1 or 2. So again, more than 500 medals are given every 4 years. So what is making the Muslims not to run or jump or swim and get a gold medal? So at least in the case of Nobel Prize, they may say there's a discrimination, there is a domination of the Jews, they're not allowing the Muslims to win Nobel Prize, so on and so forth. But here, in the case of gold in the Olympic Games, there's nobody obstructing somebody from running or jumping or swimming. So we are very backward. Economically we have been exploited, and politically also we're very weak. Whatever the superpowers tell, we listen. If you go against them, then they call you like you're a rogue country or a terrorist country like that. So politically also we are very weak. You see, whatever the Westerners dictate, we listen. And so even the number of articles we write, for example, in Western countries they write 1 million articles per year per 10 million people, whereas we publish like 1,000 articles per 10 million Muslims. So our score and our accomplishments are very marginal. So that's why the world ignores the Muslims. So we need to be, really do something about this.
What do you feel should be done for an Islamic renaissance?
For an Islamic renaissance, the first step is that we must make literacy number one priority and make everybody to read and write and understand and contribute. We also need to make education compulsory in every Muslim country, and so that every child can go up to high school at least free of cost. And then later on maybe we can select some bright students and give them scholarships in science, technology, medicine, and educate them. And that's very important. So literacy is very important both for men and women. So that is the first step. And then we need to encourage the establishment of scientific centers and exchange of scholars from one country to another, and with a lot of incentives and scholarships and stipends. So it should be a free travel and free scholarship and free boarding, lodging, and so on and so forth. So we need to have many scientific centers or medical centers where we can invite Muslim scholars to help transfer of technology, for example, science and technology, to Muslim countries, among Muslims themselves. You see, the Muslim countries cannot produce their own weapons, for example. A small developing country, a third world country can supply arms like China or maybe even Taiwan or Korea. They are supplying missiles and weapons of warfare. But we cannot produce, we have to produce our own things, So we have to be excelling in all these things. To excel in medicine and in agriculture and military science and whatever, we need to have the knowledge, know-how, and that's very important. And to have the knowledge, we should get educated. So we need to emphasize education and emphasize science and technology and medicine among our youngsters. We need to create more infrastructure, giving opportunities for youngsters to do PhDs and to become scientists in research and development. And we need to be self-sufficient. We need to have our own agricultural revolution, and we need to have our own satellites. We need to have our own fighter planes and missiles. We need to launch our own man in space. So we need to create enthusiasm and awareness in all the Muslims. And we should know our heritage. And we excelled and we ruled the world for 1,000 years. We were number one in every field of knowledge, in medicine, science, and technology, in every field. And we were innovators and inventors, and we advanced in every field, mathematics including. So I think we should realize